Chris, it's been a pretty significant week in terms of announcements by the club and the announcement that those players that are moving on are moving on. So, with regard to Bash, Baldock, Norwood, Fodringham and Lowe, what are your key memories about their contributions to this team?
Everything positive. Some have obviously were here longer than others. You know, Wes came in a little bit later, and obviously Max Lowe came in with Jayden as well, which was, as I said on record, a great deal in terms of what we got to. Really promising, outstanding players. Obviously, Jayden's still here. Difficult decisions to make, obviously, but one that we have to make, and I have to make as manager of the football club. But you know, I think it was really important that, you know, us as a football club got it right as well in terms of how we did it, the timing of it, and giving everybody that opportunity of showing their appreciation to all 5 of the players. Of course, you know, incredible memories with them, and working with them and leading with them and what they've contributed to the football club. Obviously, Bash being the longest serving one of them, and then moving forward with George, and then Ollie Norwood, and obviously Wes further down the line in terms of the part he played later on, but bringing him to the football club, you know, on a free transfer, and him playing his part in another promotion as well. So all outstanding servants, but the club has to move on, and these players, I'm sure, will reflect as much as we will. I will, as a manager, the coaches, and most importantly the players, will reflect in a very positive way their contributions in an incredibly positive time for the football club.
And they're all 3 different personalities, but they all kind of squeezed the orange, didn't they? They got the best. They really got the best out of themselves at this football club.
I think that's what we will always try to do. Get a pint out of an half-pint pot, squeeze it, as you say, overachieve, as we have done massively through our period. Maybe the campaign in League One was not really an overachievement, because we tried to get out of the division for 6 years and we couldn't. But I just think the manner of how we went about that was incredible, and Bash was part of that, and that obviously got the ball rolling. But definitely, you know, from myself and the coaches helping the players, but most importantly, as I've always said, it's them, their attitude towards everything, their attitude towards training, their attitudes towards their job, and most importantly, their love for the football club absolutely shone through, and that's why, as I've always said, when players negatively get criticised and positively get praised, there's a reason, and all those boys can be absolutely proud of their contribution through that period.
Dare I say, in terms of value for money as well, will be difficult to replace.
Well, yeah, what we're looking at, you know, Basham overlapping in the Premier League, doing a Cruyff turn at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and Harry Kane and Son and the Brazilian boy Moura going the other way was something that just makes me chuckle now. He was a signing pre-me, but one that, you know, straight away took to. So his price tag, Baldock 250, Norwood and 1.2, I think it was. Wes on a free, and I think Max was a couple of million. So their contribution, I think sometimes when people look at it and go, well, you haven't really sold any players, you know, you're not really sold anybody for 10, 15 or 20 million. There's a different contribution. Is the contribution of games, and his contribution of appearances, and there's a contribution of achievements as well. Because of course, you know, we are a club that unfortunately, if somebody does come in for our players, we have to consider. But we're a club as well that, you know, has to build, and what we did then and what we're going to try and do now is similar. And build, and their price, what we got out of them was tenfold in terms of what we paid for them.
I know we've sort of occasionally, well, quite a bit recently, gone through the players for whom have got clauses to be invoked. How much with the players for whom you are offering contracts to is there a deadline? Because the size of the rebuild that you want to do this summer is pretty significant. Presumably there has to be a cut-off. If you're wavering now, then the answer's no.
No, I get where you're coming from. You know, there'll be everyone will have their individual circumstances wrapped around it. You know, whether it's a John Egan who's coming back to full fitness, that we have to make sure that we reward John and we'd like to keep him, but we have to make sure that from a physical point of view, there's no sentiment in this. We have to make sure that we're getting value for money going forward as well. So I'll respect that some of these players will have opportunities to speak to other clubs. So I'm not going to be ridiculously harsh on them, but there will be a cut-off time for them, and I will be firm on that. And if we lose players, we lose players. But players have to be all in next year. That is the massive thing that I will demand from everybody. We won't dilly-dally with it. We won't go, well, I'm going to give you another week and give you another week, and if you decide. So there'll be that cut-off point. But out of respect from the players, I do think they deserve that opportunity. But I've got to say, I'm sure that if we can come to some sort of agreement with the players that we're going to offer contracts to, then I'm sure that they'll want to stay and want to be part of the next journey.
And does that include Sousa and Ahmedhodzic? I appreciate this is a question from outside of the club, but jungle drums beat, don't they? And there's talk that they might not be here next year. As far as you're concerned, are they going to be?
There's going to be talk about numerous players, so so we have to wheel and deal as well. So there's some players that won't want to be here and don't want to be here. So we have to make sure that we maximise their value and their price. So I'm not going to go into individual names, but obviously when that happens, then that'll be coming out publicly, as will the retainer list be coming out publicly on Tuesday. So we'll get to that situation, but as I said at the start, I think it was important that we cleared up early. I would have been really disappointed if we'd have put the retainer list out on Tuesday and nobody had that opportunity of giving the send off to the players that obviously aren't getting contracts. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's a lot of work to be done. We're 5 loans back. We're potentially half a dozen players that we will maybe look to maximise the sale price on. There'll be players out of contract as well, so that haven't been offered. So you're talking the best part of over 10 to 12 already that we have to replace. So a lot of work to be done. Ins as well as outs. So a busy summer ahead.
I realise, given what you've just said about not being too specific, fair enough. It's been reported in a national newspaper that you're after Patterson at Sunderland.
Oh, listen, I think you've sat there for the last 7 or 8 years and bombarded me with stuff a little bit longer, I think, yeah. So, even down to the days where we're at Halifax, I suppose, and but not talking in them numbers at that particular period. So we'll get linked with a lot of players right away through. So we're actively working extremely hard, putting lists together, putting ideas together with myself, the coaching staff, Jamie and Mikey Allen. So what I will say, and I think Vinny said it at Burnley, it's been going on for quite a while for me, a little bit longer than what Vinny has, but for me it's an exciting future ahead of us, without a shadow of a doubt. For me personally, I was asked a question last night, more determined, got more desire than I've ever had as anything that I've ever achieved, whether breaking into the first team or gaining a promotion, playing or the stuff that's happened as a manager. It's the era now, and it excites me extremely to know what we potentially can do and the players that we can bring into the football club. It's still, as we keep saying, a really good football club, fantastic facilities. Moving forward, as we all know, we've talked about the academy at length. Still talk about that moment when I speak to prospective players and we stood on the touchline at Bramall Lane and they've played at Bramall Lane and they go, what about that when that sound comes out and that song comes on and there's 30,000 United fans singing it. And so we have to be able to compete financially and be competitive in that market, but still this is a great sell. this football club, and there'll be whether it's a loan signing, which we've been pretty successful with in the past, or whether they're permanents. This is a football club that a lot of players would love to play for.
What do you want to see? What do you want to get out of this final game against Spurs? Because I dare say the other way of asking this question is, do you want to get this game out of the way so that the proper hard work starts? But what's the ambition Sunday?
Well, we've still got to be incredibly competitive. We're up against a team that's going for something, but we've got a lot still to play for. I keep saying to everybody, I said about it last week, no white flag regardless of league position. They've got ever a lot to play for, whether it's individually, whether players are playing in the team that their futures might be elsewhere, other players, other people watching, me watching our players that are going to be here next year as well. What's their attitude like towards it? An obligation for the league, but most importantly, an obligation to our own supporters. Our own form has been, dreadful to say the word. In bits and pieces, it's been promising. I think from a stats wise, over the last sort of couple of months, it's been promising, but the game isn't decided on stats. I think we'd have been 14 from the XG, but we've got to stick the ball in the back of net, keep the ball out of our net. That'll be a good start. When we do have opportunities to punish teams, we have to go and do that, and we're up against a very offensive team on Sunday afternoon, so we're going to have to be our best from a defensive shape point of view, but give it one more go. And that's, I was speaking to guys last night, and that's all they want to see, and that's all the majority of people want to see, is players having a right go for the football club, wearing that shirt with pride, being positive, stepping into the game, playing as a team, and showing that individual courage to be a good footballer. And nobody will of course, we want to go and win the game, but that's a starting point, and so that has to be our starting point on Sunday, being as competitive as we can possibly be.